Chapter 1 The Battle with Cato. I told you that you will not be able to beat me, Straw Hat, Trafalgar said, Cato mocking the two. Shut up, Luffy shouted. Luffy ran towards Cato to attack him. Gear 3, Luffy said while biting his thumb on his fingers. Gomu Gomu no elephant gun. Luffy shouted as he launched his attack, which was coated with armament haki. But Cato did not feel anything from the attack. With such a large body, such attacks are nothing to Cato. Cato then replies to Luffy's attack with his big fists. Immediately Luffy moved near the law, while Cato destroys the mountain behind Luffy. Mugiwara, you better be careful with his physical strength, he can destroy a mountain with just his fist. Law tries to tell Luffy to be careful. Luffy nodded understanding. It looks that you guys are exhausted, huh? Ha ha ha, laughed Cato while mocking Luffy and Law. Huffed, goddamn, how do we deal with this? Said Luffy while tired. Turns out dropping a Yonko is not as easy as imagined. Law amazed by the power of a Yonko. Well, come on Mugiwara, yes, I will go with you, Room. Law while coating his sword with armament, as well as Luffy's hand. Gear 2nd. Luffy shouted using his second gear so his body was pink with smoke surrounding it. Luffy and Law ran to face Cato, the two headed towards him. Cato then raised his hand to attack the two. But Luffy disappeared at the speed of his second gear while Law used his shambles technique so it was not exposed to Cato's blow. Luffy arrives behind Cato. Feel this, Luffy said as he extended his arms back. Red Hawk, Luffy shouted as he launched his fierce arm forward at Cato's back. Law came from the front of Cato to attack. Injection shot, yelled Law and stabbed Cato with his sword. Cato, who is now exposed to both powerful attacks and then hit back by hitting Law, but Law directly teleported with objects around him and used the Gamma Knife to attack Cato. Luffy then jumps onto the head of Cato and attacks the head. Gear 3, Gomu Gomu no Grizzly Magnum. Luffy yelled at the head. A powerful explosion ensued. Luffy and Law stepped back to avoid the explosion. The two saw their own blast area. Are we successful? Asked Luffy. I do not know, answered Law. It turns out you guys are all so strong. Luffy and Law immediately surprised to see Cato in the crater standing up straight. It turns out our attack does not work, said Law. Well, when it's an all-out attack, said Luffy. Okay, Law responds to Luffy to issue an all-out attack. Gear 3, Room, yelled Luffy and Law together. Luffy goes to the front line to attack Cato. Gomu Gomu no. Luffy shouts, get ready to launch the attack, while the Law from behind Luffy began to launch the attack by lifting his finger. So you guys will issue a full attack, huh? Well, go ahead, challenged Cato. Elephant Gatling gun. Chaos. Luffy struck his elephant gun quickly while Law was using the material in the room thrown at the Cato. Cato then strikes in a row so his fist meets the elephant gun. Luffy and Cato also destroy the material thrown in his direction. The clashes continued, until a strange light burst in the battle between Cato versus Luffy and Law. The light was so bright that it glittered their eyes. What is this? Luffy while closing his eyes with his arm. I do not know, Mugiwara, yeah, shouted Law. After the light disappears, Law starts rubbing his eyes. He sees the area around him, in his mind like losing something. Where is Mugiwara? In the town of Cow. There is now a child lying in the garden of the town of Cow. Then the child awakens from his sleep. The boy looked around the area in the park. The child was confused with his surroundings. Where am I now? Chapter 2 Luffy in a Whole New World. In club school room. In the school club room, the two occupants of the room are women. One woman has blood red hair with a slim body and has a big breast size. As well as other women who is in the room but has black hair and wears a ribbon in her hair. Akino, called the red-haired woman, while the person in the call instantly turned towards her. What is his butcho? Asked Akino. Do you not feel any strange energy? Replied Rias. Strange energy? Akino was confused with Ria's words. Akino also started to feel the strange energy talked about by Rias earlier. Yes, you're right, I also feel the strange energy. After hearing the words, Akino and Rias got up from her seat. The origin of this energy comes from Cowtown Park, said Rias while turning from the window towards the Cowtown Park. So what do? Do we have to check the park? Asked Akino, who was getting ready with the answer of her butcho. Of course, I am curious about this energy. Rias and Akino get ready to go to the park where they will find something very interesting. While in the Cow City Park, Luffy looks confused. He looks toward the surrounding park. He thinks this place is not in Wano. Where am I? Luffy thought while exploring the surrounding park. Luffy saw the fountain, the lawn chairs, the garden lights, and the trees. Luffy also realized that it was night. Did I not fight Cato in the afternoon? Why is it suddenly night? Strange? Thought Luffy with his slow head. Oh yeah, I was fighting Cato with Law. Luffy immediately went searching the whole park by running but did not find Law or Cato. Where did I go? Luffy shouted, annoyed because of the search for Law and Cato but did not find anything. Oh yeah, Luffy remembered. He also uses observation haki to feel life in that area. Luffy keeps looking but finds nothing, but ultimately Luffy feels the presence of life coming from the front. Finally there is someone thinking Luffy looking forward. Luffy runs forward to look for the man. After running fast enough Luffy finds the guy, but Luffy feels weird with the guy's clothes. The guy is wearing a closed suit like a detective with his hat. Most people would be creeped out but not for Luffy. According to Luffy, the guy has cool clothes. That guy has cool clothes, said Luffy with starry eyes. While the man did not make a sound. I thought there was a pretty strong energy here, but I just met a lowly man, said the man. Donoseek hopes that he will find interesting things instead of meeting a human boy. The boy is dressed in a long-sleeved red cardigan with 4 tombas, has a thin but muscular body. Short blue pants with a yellow belt, wears a straw hat with a scar under his left eye, and had a scar on his chest. Even Donoseek felt a shudder with a wound from which he found scaring. He thought. Luffy feels unconcerned. He still admires the man's clothes while the person feels weird with the boy's attitude. Hey, do you believe in the fallen angels? Asked the man, Luffy confused with the question. Luffy's mind is a bit lost. Fallen angels? Yes, I believe, Luffy replied with a smile, because Luffy has went on a lot of adventures and has met with other races in the world One Piece. While the man who had heard Luffy's answer just smiled and finally laughed. Ha 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 ha, the man laughed. Luffy was confused at the man for suddenly laughing. Why are you laughing, old guy? Asked Luffy. You are an interesting man. Well, I will show you the fallen angel form, the man replied. Suddenly the man immediately took out large wings. The wings were like crow wings coupled with feathers similar to crows. Luffy, who saw this, was instantly amazed with his glowing eyes as bright as the lights. Look, human, I am the Donoseek, the fallen angel, said Donoseek with an arrogant voice. Donoseek wanted to see the reaction of the human child, but the child's reaction is different from what he imagined. Kirin, Luffy shouted. Donoseek feels weird with the nature of the boy. Usually ordinary human beings will be afraid of seeing his wings, but this child is like seeing a miracle. Strange, he thought. Wow, Gramps, that is so cool. How do you do it? Said Luffy, amazed. Because I am a fallen angel, answered Donoseek. Donoseek then raised his hands and on his hands appeared a gigantic luminous spear. Because you have seen me, I must kill you, Donoseek. Luffy, who hears, just stares neutrally. Donoseek then throws the spear towards Luffy. Luffy then uses observation haki to avoid the spear easily. Donoseek surprised by the man that can avoid his spear with ease. What he thought, Donoseek distrusted. Then he took out more spears and threw them in the direction of Luffy, but Luffy easily avoided all the throws. This is too slow, Luffy thought as he dodged all the Donoseek lance pitch. Donoseek was upset that all the spears he threw away were easily avoided by a human and then pulled out a bigger spear. The spear was as big as a house. Luffy, who saw it, only had a neutral look. Donoseek then throws the giant spear towards Luffy. The spear was about to hit where Luffy stood. Donoseek think if he has managed to kill Luffy, but... Whoa, you're too slow, Gramps. Suddenly Luffy is behind the Donoseek. Donoseek does not believe this incident. Did he just avoid my giant spear, thought Donoseek. Gramps does have a strange power, but I will not lose, said Luffy, who then hit Donoseek in the stomach. Throwing strong punches, making Donoseek vomit blood and then thrown into the tree behind the park. Wow, I did not think I could punch that hard without haki. Is it because of my practice with Rayleigh? Luffy thought, smiling as he remembered his teacher. He was the one who taught Luffy how to use haki. Luffy then sees his thrown tree Donoseek. Fuck man, how can he avoid my spear? Donoseek still feels the pain in his stomach. What kind of punch it is, very sick. Donoseek then strikes Luffy at close range using his spear. Luffy, who sees the Donoseek intent on stabbing him with his spear. Luffy then uses the armament haki and raises his black hand to protect him from the spear. The spear is broken after colliding with Luffy's hand. Luffy then hit Donoseek's head with armament haki. Donoseek felt his head get slammed with iron steel. Donoseek then slammed deep into the garden fountain, then crushed Donoseek. Luffy looks at the fountain where the Donasek is thrown. He can still feel that he's still alive. Damn shit, how can he destroy my spear of light? Donasek still does not believe in this incident. Hey, Donasek, said a mysterious voice. Rainerer, what's up? Asked Donasek with his communication magic. You have to go back to headquarters right now. What is going on? Azazel-sama calls us. Sit. Okay, answered Donasek. He looks at Luffy, who still had a neutral look. What is it? Do you want to fight again? Luffy said while using a fighting pose. Donasek did not say a word and then flew away, leaving Luffy. Luffy, who saw the man fly into the sky, leaving him, disappeared. Luffy, who sees the fallen angel leaving him, just shrugs. What's with that guy suddenly picking a fight? Luffy now confused on what he will do now. Soon his stomach sounded. Hell, I'm hungry, Luffy said while holding his stomach. I should be looking for food, said Luffy. Straight to find food left the park. What is this? Said Riaz when she reached Cowtown Park. She saw Cow City Park is affected by natural disasters. The garden chairs were broken, the garden lights smashed, fallen trees, and a shattered fountain in the middle of the garden. What is this? Said Akino, surprised by the atmosphere in the park. What's this, Butto? Asked Akino. I do not know. I know, but it seems there has been a fight here, said President when viewing the garden. Maybe we are late when we got here, maybe there was a fallen angel here because of the strange energy, said Akino to the chairman. Seems so, says the president, agreeing with Akino. So what do we do now? Should we go back and think about what has happened, Butto? Okay, Akino then removed teleport symbol and disappear from the park. Chapter 3, Residence. Luffy is currently walking on the highway at night. He holds his empty stomach. Oh yeah, I have to find food, shouted Luffy. As he passes through a warehouse, Luffy feels something inside the warehouse using his haki. Looks like someone is in there. Luffy is curious and goes directly to the warehouse, and without thinking he went straight into the warehouse. Hello. Luffy tried to call someone in the warehouse but no one answered. Luffy saw that the warehouse was empty. Luffy decides to get away from the building, but well, there seems to be a human being here, said a strange voice. Luffy hears a sound. The voice comes from the top of the barn. Luffy looks up at the barn and sees a giant spider. I did not think anyone would dare go into my territory, said the spider. Luffy, who saw the giant spider, was not afraid. The spider then approached Luffy. Like her, my dinner this time was a human. The spider monster showed her poisonous fangs toward Luffy. The spider monster jumps directly towards Luffy, but Luffy swiftly avoids the attack. Luffy then retaliates by hitting her with the force of his punch. Gomu Gomu no pistol. Luffy's hand then extends, hitting the spider in front of him. The spider bounces a few feet to the back of the barn. You think I'll get hit like that, said Luffy, smiling. The spider rose from the wreckage of the warehouse and looked at Luffy with a sharp glance. The spider suddenly sprayed poison from her mouth. Luffy, who saw the poison, avoided the attack, but one drop of the poison spray hit Luffy's shoulder. Luffy is not too worried about the poison because he remembered the words of Chopper that Luffy's endurance against poison is very strong thanks to Magellan's poison that almost killed him and made Luffy's immune system very tolerant to very high poison. Gomu Gomu no Muchi, yelled Luffy. His legs kicked vertically toward the spider. Spider went bouncing into the wall of the warehouse. Okay, I'll end this, Luffy shouted. Suddenly Luffy hands shrouded in haki. Gomu Gomu no. Luffy slid forward to attack the spider. Bazooka, Luffy shouted, directly hitting the spider's stomach with his palms with armament haki. The spider felt the pain in her stomach which was struck by Luffy's punch, then bounced far back. Luffy sees the spider crushed against the wall. Well, it looks like I managed to beat her. Shishishis. Luffy laughs over his victory. Luffy then intends to leave the old warehouse, but Luffy sees a cocoon hanging between the cobwebs above the warehouse. What is that? Luffy felt the ore in the cocoon. Out of curiosity, Luffy then extended his hand holding the cocoon, then pulled it down. Luffy sees a human-sized cocoon. Then out of curiosity with the inside of the cocoon, Luffy then opened the cocoon. And it turns out that in the cocoon turned out to be a sleeping girl. The girl is wearing school clothes, wearing a short skirt thigh and had a sizable breast size. Luffy is puzzled by what to do with the woman, who then tries to wake up. Hey, are you okay? Luffy shook the woman's body to wake her up. The woman woke up from sleep. She rubbed her eyes to see clearly. She saw the face of Luffy. First, she saw Luffy's black eyes with a sewing scar under his left eye, then saw Luffy's hair. Suddenly the woman shouted. "Kaya monster!" shouted the woman who slapped Luffy's face. Luffy, who was hit by the slap, was immediately thrown back and fell. Luffy then gets up and scolds the woman. "What are you doing?" Luffy shouted, having received a sudden slap. While stroking the slap of the girl, the woman was still very frightened by the spider monster. "No, go away, spider monster!" shouted the girl. "Hey, I'm not a monster," Luffy shouted, soothing the girl. The girl then ventured to open her eyes, then saw Luffy. "Who are you?" asked the woman. "I'm the one who should say that," Luffy shouted irritably. "Where is the spider monster?" asked the girl again. "Spider monster?" Luffy then remembered the giant spider he had just defeated. "You mean that?" said Luffy while referring to the giant spider corpse lying behind the barn. The lady saw the spider at Luffy's point. She saw the giant spider she was looking for. Surprised, the woman was immediately terrified. "Kaya!" the woman shouted in fear, then headed for Luffy and accidentally hugged Luffy. Luffy, who was confused by the woman's behavior, who had quietly arrived, frightened. "Hey, are you okay?" Luffy asked, worried about the woman. "Please save me from that monster," said the woman. "Hey, calm down, the spider is dead," Luffy said, soothing the woman. "What? It's dead?" The woman then saw the spider again, and sure enough, the spider did not move at all. "Thank goodness," said the woman. She was happy because the thing she feared was gone. After a few minutes hugging Luffy, the woman was instantly woken up with what was done. Immediately released Luffy with embarrassment. "Sorry," said the woman with embarrassment. The woman could feel Luffy's muscular body. Luffy not buttoning his shirt revealed his six-pack stomach to make the woman more embarrassed. "Hey, now what else?" Luffy asked irritably with the woman's attitude. No, nothing," said the woman that still had a red color on her cheeks. "So what are you doing here?" asked Luffy. "I was kidnapped by the spider monster when I was in school," replied the lady, who was gloomy. Luffy then looked at her seriously. "At that time there was no one there to help me. I'm scared. I was afraid the spider would eat me like prey," said the woman, who began to cry. "Hey, calm down, now you're safe," said Luffy, soothing the woman. After the woman cleans her tears, she sees Luffy with a smile. "Thank you for saving me," said the woman as she downed her thanks. "No problem, she said Luffy with a laugh. Suddenly Luffy's stomach rings. Luffy immediately drops. "Hey, are you okay?" asked the woman, worried. "Ouch, I'm hungry," said Luffy. "Are you hungry?" asked the woman. "Yes, I haven't eaten for 2 days," said Luffy, "since fighting with Cato." "Then will you come to my house? Maybe I have food at my house," invited the woman. Luffy, who heard the word food, immediately woke up. "Is it true?" Luffy yelled at the woman. The woman can only be surprised by the nature of Luffy. "Yes," said the woman. "Then what are you waiting for? Let's go," said Luffy with enthusiasm. The woman was flabbergasted with Luffy's attitude, but the woman remembered something. "My name is Ayano Himiya. What is your name?" asked Ayano. Luffy then sees Ayano, then smiles. "My name is Monkey D. Luffy," said Luffy with enthusiasm. "In a club school room? So are we all gathered here?" asked Rias to her servants. "We all have gathered," Butcho Aquino replied. Rias saw all the servants have gathered. "Well, now I will talk to you all," said the president while looking at the members of her family. "Did you feel the enigmatic energy of the night?" asked the president to her servants. A girl raised her hands. She had the features of silver hair, golden yellow eyes, and was eating food on the table. Her name was Kaneko Taojao, the school's mascot. "I felt it last night, Butcho," she replied. "Me too," said a handsome man. "He is Yuudo Kiba. He is the prince in Kua Academy because of his good looks." So yes, with some of the information Rias heard, she started to think about the situation. "Last night I and Aquino followed the origin of the strange energy that was at the park, but when we got there we saw the park has been destroyed, like a fight there," said Rias to her servants. "So what will we do, Butcho?" asked Kiba to the chairman. Rias, still thinking, finally says something. "I fear there is a danger that will come and disturb our city and school," she said anxiously. "So we'd better keep a guard up," says Rias firmly. Rias peerage all nod their heads. What exactly happened? Thought the anxious president. Chapter 4: Luffy's New Life. After the incident in the warehouses, Ayano and Luffy now headed to Ayanos' house. Luffy talks with Ayano on the way. Monkey-san, called Ayano. Luffy then looked at Ayano with a sullen gaze while Ayano just felt confused. What is wrong? Asked Ayano. My name is Luffy, not Monkey, said Luffy, explaining. Then what is Monkey D? Asked Ayano curiously. It is my surname, replied Luffy, smiling. Family name, a weird family name, thought Ayano. All right, Luffy-san, I have a question? What kind of question? Said Luffy. Where do you come from, Luffy-san? Asked Ayano curiously. I'm from the East Blue, Luffy replied. East Blue, is it in Europe? Asked Ayano, more curious. East Blue is not in the Grand Line, replied Luffy, trying to explain. But he does not know that he is now in another world, so Ayano does not understand the region in the Grand Line, such as West Blue, North Blue, South Blue and East Blue. Grand Line? Ayano tried to ask more questions, but they had arrived at her house. Well, it seems we have arrived, said Ayano. This is my house, Luffy-san, said Ayano to Luffy. Luffy sees a simple house with some flowers in front of her house. Let's go, Luffy-san invited Ayano. Luffy then followed Ayano while looking at the house scenery. Ayano then opened the door to let Luffy in. Please enter, Luffy-san invited Ayano. Luffy then goes into Ayano's house. While inside the house, Luffy can see kitchen space and living room join. Do you live alone here? Asked Luffy while looking at Ayano's house. No, my mother is going abroad to work while my father is dead, so now I live alone at this time, said Ayano, slightly sad remembering her father. Luffy feels sorry for Ayano over the death of her father. Luffy then walks in the living room and sits down on the sofa. Gosh, very soft, said Luffy. Ayano, who saw this scene, was smiling with Luffy. Then she remembered something. I forget, is Luffy-san hungry? I better make dinner, thought Ayano, who went straight into the kitchen. Luffy had been jumping on the couch with joy. After a while, Luffy came down from the sofa. He then sees a picture frame. Luffy was curious. He was heading towards the photo. Seen in the picture, there are 4 people, 2 adults holding 2 daughters. Luffy suspected that the 2 adults are Ayano's parents, but he saw something odd with the photo. It turns out the 2 girls are twins. Luffy was confused. When Luffy was looking into the photo carefully, Ayano came with some food. Luffy-san, food is ready, shouted Ayano. Luffy then looked behind him and Ayano was providing food on the dining table. When Luffy sees food, he immediately starts watering from his mouth. Food, Luffy thought. He reattached the picture frame, then went to the dining table to eat his food. Please eat, Luffy-san, said Ayano with a smile. Without being told again, Luffy immediately ate the food with lightning speed. Wow, this food is delicious, yelled Luffy, praising Ayano. Thank you, Luffy-san, said Ayano gratefully. Ayano looks at the way Luffy eats. She is amazed by the way Luffy eats. After a while, seeing Luffy eating her cooking, she remembered something. So Luffy-san, where are you staying? Asked Ayano. Luffy, still eating his food, decided to pause to answer Ayano's question. I do not know where to stay now, Luffy replied, because now he lost the trail of Law and crew, so now he is confused about what to do. Now where do you live, Luffy-san? Asked Ayano. No, I do not have a place to live now, Luffy replied. Do you have parents? Asked Ayano again. I only have a grandfather and father. Now I do not know where they are, Luffy replied, considering his grandfather was a vice admiral and he never met his father Dragon at all. Ayano feels sorry for Luffy because now he has no one. Then she has an idea. Luffy-san, if you want you can stay here, said Ayano excitedly, because she will not be alone anymore. Luffy then thinks temporarily. He now does not know what he will do now. And he does not know the whereabouts of his friends-in-law now. All right, I'll stay here, Luffy replied. After hearing Luffy's reply, Ayano immediately cheers cheerfully. Thank you, Luffy-san, said Ayano with a smile. Luffy replies with a nod and then continues his dinner after the food runs out of Luffy holding his big belly. I'm good now, Luffy said with pleasure. Ayano gives Luffy a glass of water and cleans up the dirty dishes. In the first drink later drag, said Ayano, and brought a dirty plate to the sink. Luffy then drank it and was relieved. Thanks, Ayano, said Luffy. Ayano in the kitchen just smiled sincerely. After I clean this dirty plate, I'll tell you your bed, Luffy-san, said Ayano while washing dishes. Luffy headed toward the TV. He had seen it in Sabaody, but this is smaller. Ayano, what is this? Asked Luffy, who pointed at the TV. Ayano then sees Luffy pointing at the TV. It's TV, answered Ayano. TV? Luffy is thinking. Has Luffy-san ever seen a TV at all? Asked Ayano while washing the dishes. This is the first time I've seen a small one. What is its usefulness? Asked Luffy. With TV, we can see entertainment, news, and more, said Ayano. So this is a mysterious glass box, says Luffy confidently. You could say that, Ayano sweat drop. After a few minutes, Ayano finally finished washing the dishes and cleaning her hands. Luffy-san, time to show you your bedroom, said Ayano, who invites Luffy up to the second floor. Okay, replied Luffy. They go to the second floor. Ayano guided Luffy from the front while Luffy followed behind. This is your bed, Luffy-san, said Ayano. Luffy looked inside the room, the size of which can be said broad. The walls are red and has a medium-sized mattress. I like this room, Luffy said happily. Thank goodness then, said Ayano gratefully. Luffy-san can also wear my dad's clothes, said Ayano. Luffy then sees his dirty clothes due to his fights with fallen angels and spider monsters. Thanks again, Ayano, said Luffy gratefully. Then excuse me first. Good night, Luffy-san. Ayano then waves goodbye to sleep in her room. Luffy waves his hand, then he goes inside his room. Luffy instantly sits on the mattress, in mind still thinking of his friends in his world. Zoro, Nami, Usopp, Sanji, Chopper, Robin, Frankly, Brook, and others, are you all right? Said the captain of the Straw Hats, worried with his friends and alliance. Soon Luffy fell asleep on his bed. Next morning, Ayano is preparing breakfast at the dinner table. After being ready with the dish, Ayano then calls Luffy. Luffy-san, breakfast is ready, called Ayano. Luffy is still sleeping soundly with saliva coming out of his mouth, while Ayano is still calling Luffy from the kitchen. After several times Ayano summoned and did not get an answer, Ayano decided to go to Luffy's room. Ayano climbed the steps one by one and finally reached Luffy's room. Luffy-san, his breakfast is ready, called Ayano while knocking. Because of no answer, Ayano decided to enter Luffy's room. Luffy is still asleep on his back with pretty loud snoring. Ayano approached Luffy intending to wake up Luffy. Luffy-san, let's get up, said Ayano trying to wake Luffy. Luffy finally wakes up with a pouting face. Then see Ayano. Oh Ayano, what's up? Luffy said as he rubbed his eyes. Breakfast is ready, said Ayano. After hearing the word breakfast, Luffy was immediately standing upright. Breakfast. Luffy shouted to the kitchen but stopped through the door of his room. Luffy feels a sudden force. He was facing backward. Ayano was holding Luffy's collar so Luffy cannot run anywhere. What's wrong, Ayano? Asked Luffy. But before that, Luffy-san should take a shower first, said Ayano told Luffy. Luffy then smells his own body and realizes that he smells for not bathing for a week. But there are no buts, she said firmly. Luffy also relented and headed for the bathroom. Ayano was satisfied because she managed to persuade Luffy. After taking a bath, Luffy put on Ayano's father's clothes and headed to the dining table. There was Ayano waiting for Luffy. Please, Luffy-san, said Ayano to Luffy. With lightning, Luffy sat down and started eating the meal that was on the dinner table. Ayano started giving his food. At breakfast, they chatted. Luffy then sees Ayano's school clothes. What's that clothing? Asked Luffy. Ayano then sees Luffy who is eating meat, especially meat. This is a school dress, answered Ayano. School? Luffy asked again. Right, I'm in the school Cow Academy. Does Luffy-san not go to school? Asked Ayano. No, Luffy replied while eating the food. Why? Asked Ayano. Since childhood, I was never in school, Luffy replied, remembering his grandfather always training him in the wilderness. Ayano feels sorry for Luffy for never going to school. She also has an idea. What if Luffy-san went to school in Cocoon Academy, said Ayano. Luffy then thought for a moment. Is school fun? Luffy thought with a question mark. Do not worry, Luffy-san, the school is free of charge, said Ayano. Cocoon Academy, what is it like? Luffy asked curiously. Cocoon Academy was formerly a women's school, but then the school was opened into a mixed school and the principal also waived the fee for people who want to go to school there. Not only that, Cow is also famous for its complete material and activities in the school, such as clubs. Ayano explained the advantages of Cow. It seems fun, said Luffy, getting interested. So Luffy-san, do you want to go to school there? Asked Ayano. All right, I'll go to school there, said Luffy firmly. Then I will take care of your registration, said Ayano pleased. After a few minutes they finally finished breakfast. Ayano brought a dirty dish to the dishwasher. After cleaning the dirty dishes, Ayano began to go to school. So Luffy-san, can you keep the house in check? I will go to school and all you enroll into school, said Ayano after putting on her shoes. Okay, shisha, she said Luffy while laughing. Ayano goes to school after Ayanos' departure. Luffy goes inside the house to the fridge for food, but Luffy sees a book on the dining table. Luffy picked up the book. Ayano probably accidentally left this book. I have to chase her, said Luffy. Luffy then heads for the exit and runs after Ayano. Maybe Luffy can chase Ayano, but Luffy is lost because he has not memorized Kua City Street, v. Luffy keeps running around looking for Ayano but always finds a dead end. Luffy also uses his devil fruit to look for Ayano, jumping here and there. As he tumbles from the top of the tile to the other tile, Luffy sees someone with Kua Academy clothes, as he also attends school there. Should I ask him, thought Luffy. The person who visits Luffy is Hayata Issei, who is heading to school. Luffy landed in an alley and ran to the Issei. Hey, said Luffy, calling Issei. While the caller turns to see who is calling him, he hopes that it is a beautiful woman with a big chest, but his hopes are in vain because he sees a man running towards him. The man arrived in front of him. The man was wearing a plain white shirt, had black hair, black eyes with a scar under his eyes. Anu, can I help you? Asked Issei. Can you show me where Kua Academy is, said Luffy. Oh, of course, you can, said the Issei. They also walked together toward the Kua Academy. After a long walk, they arrived at the school gate. There are already many students coming. Issei and Luffy were walking in the middle. The female students who saw the Issei and Luffy whispered, did he bring new members into his disgusting group? Whispered one of the girls. The base of the nasty man just died there, whispered one of the students. Issei hears the whispers with annoyance, while Luffy was confused with the whispers. Suddenly someone came crashing into Issei. It turns out he is Matahama and Matsuda. Yo, Issei, how are you? Asked Matsuda. While the one called just smiled with them both. Yo, Matahama, Matsuda said. Issei greeted them. Hey, do you want to peek? I heard the second years are changing clothes, has said Matahama, teasing Issei. Issei was moved by Matahama's persuasion. Scene of a lecherous Issei who wants to see a pay. Looks like I will come, said Issei while wearing his depraved face. Yes, it's time to see a pay, yelled Matsuda. Luffy had heard them talking about women's breasts. Obviously, Luffy did not understand it, but when it comes to Luffy, food is no joke. Hey, what are you talking about? Luffy asked the nasty trio. The perverted trio looked at Luffy. Issei then remembered with Luffy. Oh yeah, sorry, I did not remember you, said Issei, apologizing. Is this Kua? Asked Luffy. Right, this is Kua Academy, replied Issei. As they chatted, there was a shout of energetic students. Kaya, Ria-sama, Akino-sama, shouted the girls. Trio Gullible and Luffy immediately see the origin of the sound coming. The students swarmed around someone. Rias and Akino walk into the school surrounded by the students who took care of them. Luffy, who sees this, is perplexity confused. Why are they shouting? Asked Luffy to Issei. Because they are Great Oni-sama in this school, Issei explained to Luffy. Great Oni-sama? Asked Luffy. Yes, they are students who are admired in this school, replied Matsuda. The leader of the occult club, Ria's Gremory, and behind her is her vice Akino Himejima, continued Matahama. Look at their pay, big as usual, said Matahama with glazed eyes. I want to be buried between two mountains, Issei hoped. So they are important people? Luffy starts to understand. Of course, shouted the impish trio of annoyance. Luffy sees Rias and Akino. Rias has a neutral face while Akino had her usual smiley face. When Rias and Akino pass through Luffy and the nasty trio, Rias glances at Luffy. Akino, who is he? Asked the president. Akino then sees the person in question. They are the nasty trio, replied Akino. Not them, the one wearing a straw hat, said Rias. Akino then saw the man in the straw hat. I do not know, maybe that person wants to enroll in this school, Akino answered. What's wrong with him? Asked Akino. I feel something with that child, replied Rias. Rias and Akino go into school. Luffy feels the red-haired girl is looking at him. Matahama and Matsuda suddenly smile. Did she just glance at us? I think so, said both of them. Maybe she saw me, said Issei. Luffy saw the three of them and instantly laughed. Ha 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 ha, you are so funny, said Luffy while laughing. The trio sees Luffy laughing. Why are you laughing? Asked Matsuda. Because you're so funny, said Luffy smiling. Luffy then remembered to give this book to Ayano. Then see ya, thanks for showing me, said Luffy while running for Ayano. Issei, Matsuda and Matahama see Luffy go away. When Luffy ran, he did not realize that he was being watched by someone from a building. What's wrong, Butto? Asked Akino standing behind her chairman. It's nothing. Ria sat back to her seat and focused back to her chess game. Luffy keeps looking for Ayano in school, but Luffy keeps running to and fro but finds no Ayano. When Luffy despaired, he suddenly came to a group. The group turned out to be a Sony Citrese group with her servants following her from behind. Luffy still runs around but finds no Ayano. When Luffy runs, he does not see where he is going and collides with Sana's group. They both fell together. Sana's servants were surprised to see the chairman fall. Hey, what are you doing, huh? Shouted Tomoe Meguri, one of Sana's pawns. Do you have eyes? Continued the members of the Citri peerage. Luffy stands up and cleans his clothes from the clinging ground. Damn, Ayano's father's clothes are dirty, said Luffy disregarding their shouts. Listen here, shouted Ruruko and Tomoe together. Luffy then looks forward to apologize to the people he hit. Sorry, I did not see you, Luffy apologized. Sona then sees the person who bumps into her. The guy has a pretty handsome face with a big smile, black hair, and wears a straw hat. Who are you? Asked Sona to Luffy. My name is Luffy, said Luffy, friendly acquaintance. You're not a student here, right? Sona watched Luffy closely. Right, Luffy replied. What are you doing in this school? Sona curious with this child's purpose. I'm looking for someone, said Luffy. Who are you looking for? Sona more curious. Her name is Ayano Hamiya, Luffy said. Wrong. You mean Ayano Himiya, corrected Sona. That's her, agreed Luffy. She is in class Z12, Sona told Luffy. Okay, thank you, said Luffy, running somewhere. Sona then went on, but not yet. I have one more news. Luffy suddenly comes again in front of Sona group. Sona group is surprised to see the sudden arrival of Luffy. Member Sona, Momo Hanaka, Riaya Kusaka, Ruruko and Tomoe shocked while Saji fell back because of shock. Sona's group is angry with Luffy. What is wrong with you? Shouted Momo. Moron, shouted Riaya. You make us angry, shouted Ruruko. What now? Shouted Tomoe. Now what? The awkwardness woke up from the attitude. Luffy, who saw them suddenly angry, immediately apologized. Sorry, Shishishi, said Luffy, apologizing while laughing. What do you want now? Asked Sona, who is also shocked but looked calm. Do you know where class Z12 is? Asked Luffy to Sona. Sona just sighs with Luffy's stupidity. Tsubaki, called Sona. People who in the call appear. What is it, Chairman? Asked Tsubaki. Bring him to class Z12. Okay, replied Tsubaki. Tsubaki then helped Luffy. Come with me, said Tsubaki. Luffy then followed Tsubaki from behind. Let's go, Sona asks the group. Luffy is with Tsubaki heading towards X12 class. Luffy then sees Tsubaki. Is this woman your boss? Asked Luffy to Tsubaki. She's not my boss, she's my chief and president at this school, replied Tsubaki. Luffy nodded with an explanation from Tsubaki despite not knowing what she meant. Do you have a relationship with Ayano Himiya? She's my friend, replied Luffy. Tsubaki then looked at Luffy by looking back. She looked back at Luffy's face expecting a lie, but did not find a lie but a sincere smile. So yes, said Tsubaki. Are you a friend of Ayano? Asked Luffy. I'm not too close to her, but we are friends, replied Tsubaki while turning. Good, Luffy is happy if Ayano has friends. Tsubaki is confused with the words of Luffy. What are you talking about? Asked Tsubaki, confused. Ayano is alone, she lives alone in her house, her mother goes to work overseas while her father is dead, so she now lives alone, but I am happy if she has friends, said Luffy gratefully. Tsubaki, who had just learned, did not expect if the fate of Ayano was so solitary. After a while, they reached the X12 class. Briefly, I'll call Ayano. Tsubaki then knocked the door. The door was opened by a teacher. What's up, Tsubaki-san? Asked the teacher. Is Ayano Himiya inside? Oh, sure, I'll call her over, said the teacher while calling Ayano. Tsubaki then looked at Luffy. Well, here you are, said Tsubaki and went away. Luffy suddenly calls Tsubaki. Hey, what's your name? Asked Luffy. My name Tsubaki Shinra, replied Tsubaki. My name is Monkey D. Luffy, happy to meet you, said Luffy. Tsubaki raised an eyebrow at the strange name of Luffy. Monkey D? Thought Tsubaki. Tell your boss I said thanks. She's not my boss, said Tsubaki, annoyed. Tsubaki left Luffy. Luffy then saw the door of the classroom open again, and it turns out the one who opened the door is Ayano. Luffy-san, what are you doing here? Asked Ayano. Yo Ayano, this is your book. Missed. Luffy gave a book to Ayano. Ayano, who saw his mathematical book, missed the shock. This is my mathematical book, thank you Luffy-san. Ayano, thank you. Shishishi, welcome, said Luffy while laughing. After Luffy and Ayano chatted, the bell rang stating that the students could go home now. But Ayano is confused as this is not the time to go home. It's weird, it's not like it's time to come home from school. Why they ringing the bell from school, said Ayano. Suddenly a voice was heard. Attention students, because of a meeting students will be sent back, so for the rest of the lessons can be continued tomorrow, said the voice. Luffy, hearing, looks happy because he can go home with Ayano and eat Ayanos cuisine. Luffy is now hungry for running in this school long enough and making him hungry. Looks like we can go home now, said Luffy. Seems so, then I'll take my bag. Ayano then went inside to pick up her bag. After a few seconds Ayano was out. Let's go, Luffy-san invited Ayano. They also walked to the house together. While in the streets Ayano and Luffy are talking. Luffy-san, you are enrolled in school, so tomorrow you will go to school, said Ayano. That's awesome, you know I did met some people in the school, they're all funny, said Luffy, remembering Issei Matsuda and Matahama and also Sana's peerage. That's good, hopefully, Luffy-san befriends them. Ayano cheered on Luffy. They both walked in the scorching daylight, but Luffy's new adventure it soon got started. Chapter 5, School and Fallen Angels. The sun began to manifest itself and illuminated a house, and inside the house, there was a child who had fallen asleep in his room. His name is Monkey D. Luffy, who is trapped in a world he does not know. Now he lives in a house thanks to a girl he helped while falling asleep soundly, being called by her. Luffy-san, come down, breakfast is ready, called a girl who is Ayano Himiya, the girl Luffy helped. But even though the shout was loud, the Straw Hat Captain did not seem to wake up because of how he slept. The sound of footsteps is heard from the door of Luffy's room. The door of Luffy's room is open and Ayano is upset because from last night Luffy still cannot let go of his molar habits. Ayano then comes to Luffy and starts to wake him up. Hey Luffy-san, time to wake up, you have school, said Ayano, trying to wake up Luffy. But Luffy does not seem to hear the call, he seems to have been locked in his dream about meat. Ayano then upset, on the first day of school it seems Luffy will be late. He cannot be late, said Ayano firmly. Ayano then holds up Luffy's cheek and pinched him. Luffy's cheeks, whose cheeks felt like being bitten by ants, instantly awaken. Ouch, ouch, Luffy shouted in pain. Luffy then sees Ayano in front of him, who is looking at him angrily. Luffy feels Ayano looks angry, then immediately shouted in protest. What the hell, Ayano? Luffy protests, not accepting the pinch. I should be saying that, why is Luffy-san still asleep when it is early morning this afternoon, said Ayano angrily. I'm dreaming about meat, Luffy replied innocently. Ayano feels very keen to hit Luffy, but Ayano thinks Luffy is just a plain person. When it comes to eating, I have prepared food downstairs, said Ayano. Luffy immediately stood up straight. Food. Luffy yelled, immediately running with his collar held by Ayano so that Luffy cannot move forward. Bath first, said Ayano to Luffy. Luffy just sighed and headed for the bathroom to clean his body. After a bath, Luffy arrived at the table and got ready to eat. They started breakfast. Oh yes, Luffy-san, by the way, the clothes match you, praised Ayano. Scene now. Luffy was wearing Kua Academy school clothes. Luffy does not listen to Ayanos' praise, he is too focused on his food. After a long breakfast, they were ready to go to school. Let's go, Luffy-san invited Ayano, waiting at her home gate. Well, I'm ready, said Luffy confidently. Ayano then looked at the way Luffy was wearing shoes. Luffy was wearing his shoes on the wrong feet. It's not that way, Luffy-san, here let me help. Ayano then fixes the position of Luffy's shoes. Finished, said Ayano after lacing Luffy's shoes. Thanks, Ayano, said Luffy, thanks, with a smile. They begin to go to school. On the way, Luffy and Ayano talk to each other. Luffy-san, this is your first day in school, how do you feel? Asked Ayano, curious with Luffy's feelings. I'm very happy, I cannot wait, Luffy replied with enthusiasm. Ayano was pleased with Luffy's reply. He also remembered a question. Is Luffy-san going to be with a club? Asked Ayano. Luffy was just thinking about clubs. He thought about the club he would join. I still don't know, it looks like I should see whatever clubs are in that school, said Luffy impatiently. What if Luffy-san joined my club? Said Ayano, offering. Really, join what club? Asked Luffy. I joined the swimming club, said Ayano, hoping Luffy will be interested. But it seems Ayano felt that Luffy is not interested, visible from the face of Luffy. I guess I cannot join your club, said Luffy. Why? Asked Ayano curiously. I cannot swim, Luffy replied. After hearing the answer, Luffy Ayano directly moody. So no, said Ayano, resigning. Luffy feels guilty in rejecting Ayano's invitation, but Luffy cannot swim. How can I swim if I have eaten a devil fruit, Luffy thought. After a long walk they reached the school gate. Looks like we've got here, said Luffy. Then I go first, Luffy-san. Oh yeah, your class is Zaiten, do not forget to go into your class when the bell rings, said Ayano, then leave Luffy. Luffy is now abandoned by Ayano. Luffy then sees the nasty trio are gathering and talking as usual, but there is a difference. There is seen a beautiful woman with the three people. Luffy then headed to the trio. Hey, how are you guys? Says Luffy. The three and the woman stared at Luffy. Hey, is he not the man yesterday? Said Matsuda, whispering to his two friends. Yes, you're right, said Matahama. Luffy then sees the three men and sees a beautiful woman. The woman was wearing school clothes and wearing a yellow ribbon in her hair. Are you the one that day? Asked Issei to Luffy. Right, said Luffy to justify. My name is Hayata Issei, said Issei, introducing himself. My name is Matsuda. My name Matahama, happy to meet you, said Matahama acquaintance while holding his glasses. My name is Monkey D. Luffy, nice to meet you guys, Shishishi, said Luffy acquainted while laughing with his typical laugh. Monkey, is that your name? Asked Matsuda, not believing. A strange name, do you like monkeys? Asked Matahama. The three men were confused by Luffy's name. Why would Luffy have an animal name? No, my name is Luffy, not a monkey. Monkey D is my surname, Luffy replied as he explained. Family name, does your family love the primate animal? Asked Matsuda. I do not know, my grandfather and my father also use the name Monkey D, said Luffy confused, explaining. Then what is D? Asked Matahama curious. I don't know, but my friend is very curious about the letter D, said Luffy. Remember Robin who wants to know will of D. They are still thinking about the family name of Luffy. Then Issei recalls his girlfriend and then introduces his girlfriend to Luffy. Oh yeah, let me introduce her, my girlfriend. Her name is Amano Yuma, said Issei, introducing his girlfriend to Luffy. The woman looked at Luffy and looked down at Luffy. Greetings, said Amano while looking down. Yo, said Luffy, who raised his hand as usual. After having met with the lecherous trio and the woman, the bell sign reads to indicate the students to enter the class. Luffy remembered Ayano's words to enter the classroom. Then see ya, Issei, Matahama, Matsuda and Amano, said Luffy, then go into his class. Luffy walks down the aisle to his class. On the way Luffy sees many of the students running around. What's with them? Thinking Luffy. After walking long enough Luffy was not yet to his class. It turns out Luffy just realized that. Where is class Zaiten? Luffy thought, just realizing, he forgot to ask Ayano where class Zaiten is located. With confusion, Luffy starts to think with his slow head. He thinks it's better to ask someone else. Luffy was looking for someone to ask questions, but the hallway was empty, leaving Luffy confused on what to do. To his luck though, there is someone that walks by. That person is Akino Himejima. Akino then sees a bewildered Luffy and then comes to Luffy out of curiosity. Akino looks at Luffy's face and realizes that she has never met him. Akino first encounters with Luffy. Hello, do you need help? Asked Akino to Luffy. Luffy then looks at Akino. Luffy is grateful there is someone who will help him. Do you know where class Zaiten is? Asked Luffy. Class Zaiten is on the 3rd floor. You can use the stairs at the end of the hall, Akino tells Luffy. Yosh, thanks. Luffy ran straight to the stairs to the 3rd floor. Akino smiled to see Luffy gone. She went on his walk, but Akino remembered something. Is that not the class that the president is in? Class Zaiten, thought Akino, remembering her buto. Luffy arrived on the third floor. He was looking for class Zaiten. By looking at the sign above the door, Luffy finally found his class. Luffy then knocks on his class door. "Excuse me," Luffy shouted. The door was opened, and the opening was a teacher. The teacher sees Luffy. "You have come?" "Yes," said the teacher. Luffy nodded. "Okay, come in," instructed the teacher. The teacher also let Luffy in. Luffy can see the students in that class, and Luffy can see a red-haired girl. "Children, please pay attention," shouted the teacher. The students were silent and looked forward. "Today we have a new student. Now introduce yourself," told the teacher. "My name is Monkey D. Luffy. You can call me Luffy. I love meat and adventure." "Greetings," yelled Luffy, acquainted. The students in the class now see a child wearing a straw hat introducing himself. The disciples have different reactions, many of which are confused by his name. Some are wondering with his happy-going attitude. Rias from the back is shocked by the arrival of Luffy. "Well, now you will sit near Gremory-san." "Gremory-san, please raise your hand," told the teacher. Rias then raised her hand. "Now you can sit, Luffy-san," asked the teacher. Luffy then heads to his seat near Rias. Rias saw Luffy heading in her direction, then sits next to her left. "Well, now we will start the lesson," said the teacher who started the lesson. The lesson began. After 20 minutes of lessons, Rias faces forward to pay attention to the lesson. Luffy sees the lesson with boredom and starts sleeping. "This is very boring," said Luffy, wearing his bored face. Rias, who heard Luffy, immediately saw Luffy digging his nostrils, then throw his nasal droppings and then suddenly fall asleep with sleep. Rias, who saw this, was laughing with the boy. Sometimes she laughed a little at the behavior of the Straw Hat Boy. The hour lesson has been completed and the bell sign breaks. The students start out of the classroom to begin their break. Now Luffy is walking around looking for food because his stomach is hungry. Luffy smells food by using his nose. "Food!" Luffy shouted, immediately ran to find the origin of the smell. The occult club room. "I heard there is a new kid who entered this school," said Kiba, who was drinking a coffee made by Akino. "I also heard," said Akino, feeding Kaneko. "I want to know how good the new man is. Is he good looking?" asked Akino, imagining a person like her type and unconsciously licking her lips. "I hear that he's pretty handsome and he has a scar on one of his eyes," said Kiba and sipped his coffee. "Scar?" Akino suddenly remembered someone. As they talk about the new kid, Rias entered. "Oh, Butcho has come," welcomed Akino. Kiba and Kaneko then salute the dressing president and then sit in her usual place, the club chair. "I've met the new guy," said Rias to her servants. Kiba, Akino and Kaneko then watched their chairman seriously about the new boy. Maybe the new boy was a disaster for this school. "So what kind of a person is he, Butcho?" asked Kiba. "Do not worry, the new boy is not a threat to this school," Rias explains Luffy. "Me and Akino have met him," continued Rias. "He seems to always wear a straw hat," said Akino, remembering Luffy. "A straw hat? That's very rare," thought Kiba while drinking his coffee. "Yes, true, maybe last night he was enrolled in this school," said Rias, remembering Luffy. "What's he like?" asked Kiba curiously. "The boy was wearing a straw hat, had black hair and black eyes. He was quite handsome," said Akino, remembering Luffy. Rias nods in agreement with Akino. Kiba nods understanding. "The boy is named Monkey D. Luffy." President tells the name of Luffy to her servants. "Monkey D?" Akino confused. "The child is harmless, he smiles a lot and I think he is also stupid," said Rias, remembering the behavior of Luffy in class. "Even so, we cannot underestimate him, so we should keep an eye on him," and then points to Kaneko. "Kaneko, can you keep an eye on that boy?" said the president. Kaneko stands up from her couch and faces the chairman. "I understand," said Kaneko, obeying her orders. They then changed the subject. "Butcho, it sounds like you're right about Hayata Issei," said Akino, changing the subject. "You mean the sacred gear owned by Hayata Issei?" said Rias. "As you say, he has a very strong sacred gear," said Akino while cleaning up the remains of Kaneko's snacks. "And he seems to have been targeted by some fallen angels," continued Akino. "Then keep an eye on him too, we do not want to lose him, he is very important." The peerage listened to the master's orders. "Do you think the new student also has a sacred gear?" asked Akino. "I do not know, but I do know he is not an ordinary person. His aura is different from ordinary people." President told her servants to be careful with Luffy. "All right," said the dressing peerage. Rias then saw the window to her right. She could see the canteen building from there and she felt a weird atmosphere from there. Why is the atmosphere of the canteen very noisy, thought Rias. Canteen. Visible now. Luffy is bringing some food away from the cafeteria protesters because Luffy has eaten a lot of food in the cafeteria. Hey, quickly return the food, shouted one of the canteen carpenters. No way, rejected Luffy while running with a mouth full of food. Luffy keeps running from the hallway to his other aisle. But when passing a dungeon, Luffy hit someone. The woman who hit Luffy is Sona, who was patrolling. Sona then sees Luffy. She is shocked at not expecting that Luffy will go to school here. Luffy then apologizes to the person. Sorry, I did not see you, said Luffy to Sona. You are. Surprised Luffy remembered the incident last time. Oh, so you go to school here, huh? Asked Sona while standing up and holding her glasses, staring at Luffy. Yup, Luffy replied. Sona then sees the innate Luffy is eating very with a mouth full of food. Are you stealing food? Asked Sona, looking at Luffy sharply. Luffy, who was stared at with the shoulder-length haired woman, can only bring out a cold sweat. No, what are you talking about? Said Luffy, trying to lie while whistling to his right. Sona sees clearly Luffy's lie. She wonder if this kid cannot lie. I've been looking into your lie, so you cannot run anymore, Sona says to intimidate Luffy. Luffy is depressed. Ayano comes after hearing the commotion. Luffy-san, what happened? Asked Ayano, worried. Ayano then saw Sona. What is this, Sona-san? Asked Ayano to Sona. Sona then looked at Ayano. Is he your friend, Ayano? Asked Sona to Ayano. Right, he's my friend, answered Ayano. Do you know what he has done, Sona said, pointing at Luffy, who is still sweat cold while whistling. I do not know, answered Ayano. He has stolen some food from the canteen and made a riot, said Sona to Ayano. Ayano then sees Luffy whistling. Is that really true, Luffy-san? Asked Ayano. Luffy, who cannot evade, again forced to admit it. Yes, I stole the food, said Luffy, confessing. Ayano then sighs after hearing Luffy's confession. If so, can you forgive Luffy, Sona-san? Ayano tried to help Luffy. I cannot, he has violated the rules at school, Sona said firmly. So he needs to be punished, said Sona, pointing Luffy. What is his punishment? Asked Ayano. He has to clean all the washrooms in this school, said Sona. What, is not that too heavy, rejected Ayano. Okay, I'll do it. Luffy suddenly approves the punishment from Sona. But Luffy-san. It's okay, this is all my fault, so I have to take responsibility for my actions, she said Luffy while laughing. Okay, I approve it, said Luffy to Sona. Sona then smiles at Luffy's behavior. Well, I hope you quickly finish it, Sona said, then left Luffy and Ayano. But Luffy-san, it will take all night, do it, said Ayano, worried with Luffy. It's okay, I'm an even spirit, firmly said Luffy with enthusiasm. Ayano, you better go home first, said Luffy, told Ayano. No, I will wait for you, said Ayano. No, I can overcome this on my own, she said Luffy while laughing with his typical laugh. Ayano also relented. Evening. Luffy is now cleaning the last washroom with pell cloth. After a very long time, finally, Luffy finished. Finally finished Luffy with all the washrooms clean. Time to go home, said Luffy, getting ready to go home. The night was very bright, there are stars seen in the sky. Luffy is walking on the highway near Kua City Park. As Luffy passes through the garden, Luffy feels something with his observation hockey. Luffy feels there are two living in the park. Looks like there is someone in the park, said Luffy curiously, then headed to the park to check it out. Issei POV. I felt my stomach pierced by a very long and glowing spear. I could not breathe. Is this the end for me? I see who the perpetrator is. Throwing this spear is Amano Yuma, my own girlfriend. I do not know why she did this. We just dated normally, but when we go to the park she spouted out something, whether you can die for me? She said, then suddenly turned into a fallen angel. Then she laughs at throwing a spear at me, and now she laughs at me who is dying. At the time of her change I saw her big breasts. I really hope that I can hold them just once before I die. I must be very grateful, and when I see my blood I remember her, the beautiful red-headed woman. And now she's like in front of me. I want to hold her hair, but it seems I cannot. As my eyes get blurry, I see someone coming. He's wearing a straw hat. I know him. He is a new student named Luffy at my school. I do not know him yet, but it seems he is a good person. My eyes are dark. Now all I can see is darkness. Issei POV end. Now Luffy sees Issei drowning in the ground with a lot of blood flowing in his body. Issei, are you okay? Luffy shouted at the side of Issei lying stiffly. Hey, Issei, why are you here? Asked Luffy, but Issei did not reply. Then Luffy sees Rainer that fly seeing him. What are you doing to Issei? Said Luffy angrily to Rainer. Rainer, who sees Luffy's anger, just laughs. Ha 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 ha, humans, they are so fragile, said Rainer arrogantly. I'm sorry I killed your human friend, but your friend can be dangerous for us, so we have to eliminate him, said Rainer with a contemptuous look. I do not care what you talk about, but I'll beat you, said Luffy, and prepared to attack. Gomu Gomu no pistol, Luffy shouted, his hand stretching forward. Rainer, who did not expect the attack to come, she was hit by Luffy's blow to the ground. Did he just stretch his hand? How can that be? Does he have a sacred gear? Thinking Rainer. Rainer, who received the attack, immediately responded by raising a spear of light and threw it at Luffy. But Luffy can avoid the attack quickly, then Luffy runs to Rainer to attack again. Rainer will not repeat her mistake again, flying in the sky with a spear of light with very much power to attack Luffy. Luffy avoids the throwing of the spear, then prepares to attack with his rubber fruit. Gomu Gomu no, Luffy shouted, getting ready. Luffy then already in front of the shocked Rainer bazooka. Luffy shouted with his arms thrown forward. But Rainer blocked it with her spear of light. Rainer bounced back. Luffy followed Rainer that bounced off the body of Issei. Now seen the two different races are fighting, a human and the fallen angel. Gatling gun. Luffy shouted repeatedly, attacking Rainer, who has been exhausted of her stamina because of Luffy's attack from earlier. You fucking man, growled Rainer, who then took out more light spears. Luffy has been constantly attacking Rainer with power. Normally, I might be able to beat her with my second gear quickly, but I do not need to, Luffy thought confidently. Both races stopped temporarily and stared at each other. Luffy then looked at Rainer carefully. Luffy was shocked. Rainer, who saw her, instantly confused. Are not you his girlfriend? Luffy shouted, realizing. Yes, aren't you aware? Shouted Rainer, not believing with Luffy's brain. Yes, I just realized it, said Luffy innocently while scratching the back of his head. Rainer, who saw him, just sighed, then Rainer suddenly laughed. Ha 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 ha, you're so cute, humans. Rainer laughed, not out of humiliating but because she thought it was funny. You wear some funny clothes, said Luffy to Rainer, still laughing. Indeed, said Rainer to Luffy. She realized she must complete her mission. Sorry boy, I must kill you, said Rainer, who then took out a very large spear of light and threw it at Luffy. Luffy then avoids it by jumping to the left, then he pins, lifting his legs, intent to kick. Gomu Gomu no Muchi, Luffy shouted, kicking horizontally toward Rainer. Rainer hit the kick, then Luffy ran towards Rainer to attack her. Gomu Gomu no, Luffy shouted, then headed to Rainer and got ready to punch. Bullets, shouted Luffy. Rainer crashed back into the tree behind her. Rainer is now badly injured due to Luffy's attacks with her battered body. Luffy also approached Rainer, who looks in pain. Luffy sees Rainer with neutral stares. Luffy was reminded of the Issei, then ran towards looking for Issei's body lying near the fountain. Rainer used this opportunity to escape by flying out of Luffy's range. Luffy continued searching for the Issei's body but could not find anything but Issei's blood. Where is Issei's body? As I recall he was here, said Luffy, confused. Luffy then thinks to tell this to Ayano. Luffy also left a mess in Cowtown Park. To be continued.